Hello.
Hello.
What are we talking about today?
Well, we are talking about how exactly 1 week ago, Yelp announced a new customer alert system that takes a firm stance against racism.
Yay! Yay? Is
Well,
that
we shall discuss.
okay?
Um, Welcome everyone, Vince.
Why are you holding toilet paper in your hand?
It's so
Oh.
don't bother me.
Okay, what? Okay,
It's
that's
not
not
toilet
toilet.
paper.
Yeah, we're here
Um,
with Vince.
yeah, please introduce yourself, Vince. Plug yourself.
So, my name is Vincent Freeman, not related to Gattaca, because some people have been asking me about that. No. Um, I host a YouTube channel called The Babylon Project. That one right there, that's on there, in which I host Thinking Out Loud. You can buy merch as like yours truly has. We interview people such as Michael Shermer, James Lindsay, Peter Boghossian, Armin Navabi, and Susanna. I'm going to get this right one of these days. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I always enjoy doing these things. You guys are great, and I have a lot of fun on here.
Yeah, you're
Yay!
one of my best friends. We love it.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
And guys,
and
if you're watching this later, make sure you're subscribed, but you also hit the notification bell so that you can see when we go live. If you hit the notification bell, you have to make sure you select all, because if you don't select all, YouTube will be like, maybe you don't want it that much. So I'm not gonna tell you when these people go live. So you're like, that's why you actually have to hit the notification bell, then all, and like, oh, okay, and then maybe YouTube like, okay, fine, you really want to see them when these people go live, and then they will tell you when we go live. All right. Wait, should I share my screen?
yeah, go for it.
All right. Hold on. This is what we're looking at. What is this? What are we looking at here?
Zoom in, por favor. Beautiful. So this is what has caused this controversy. Now, why has this caused controversy? Well, let's get into it. Last Thursday, Nouri Malik, who's the VP of User Operations, made this announcement. New consumer alert on Yelp takes firm stance against racism. And then they gave an update. And, well, maybe we can get up into that update later, but let's scroll down. So it starts with this little blurb. When we notice an unusual spike in activity on a business's Yelp page, our team of moderators will investigate and temporarily disable content as we place an alert on the business's page to warn users that some of these reviews may not be based on first-hand experiences. Oh wait, I think this is the update. I don't know, I'm not sure. So yeah, let's get into this first. At Yelp, we value diversity and belonging both internally and on our platform, which means we have zero tolerance policy to racism. We know these values are important to our users, and now more than ever, consumers are increasingly conscious of the types of businesses they patronize and support. In fact, we've seen that reviews mentioning Black owned businesses were up more than 617% this summer compared to last summer. Um, Support for women-owned businesses has also increased, with reviews mentioned up 114% for the same time period. Over the summer, Yelp rolled out a number of initiatives to help users find and support Black-owned businesses. We've partnered with My Black Receipt on the launch of a Black-owned business attribute and joined the 15% pledge to further amplify Black-owned businesses. While searches for Black-owned businesses surged on Yelp, so did the volume of reviews warning users of racist behavior at businesses. Today, in response to this, we will now place a distinct consumer alert on business pages to caution people about businesses that may be associated with overtly racist actions. A new consumer alert.
What could go
Yeah.
wrong? Yeah, great idea. Okay, go ahead.
Um, a new consumer alert to stand against racism. Communities have always turned to Yelp in reaction to current events at the local level. Okay, the first place I turned to current events at the local level is not Yelp. But anyways, um, As the nation reckons with issues of systemic racism, we've seen in the last few months that there is a clear need to warn consumers about businesses associated with egregious, racially charged actions to help people make a more informed spending decisions. Yelp's user operations team has already placed alerts on business pages when we notice an unusual uptick in reviews that are based on what someone may have seen in the news or on social media, rather than on firsthand experience with the business. Now, when a business gains public attention for reports of racist conduct, such as using racist language or symbols, Yelp will place a new business. Oh my gosh. So Yelp will place a new business accused of racist behavior alert on their Yelp page to inform users, along with a link to a news article where they can learn more about the incident. Um, okay, so I guess this is what it looks like. So this alert has a little red exclamation point, and it says business accused of racist behavior. Recently, someone with this associated with this business was accused of racist behavior, resulting in an influx of people posting their views to this page. Racism is reprehensible and has no place on Yelp, and we unequivocally reject racism in any form. Read about the reports of racist behavior here. So that's like an example where I would link to a news article about this. While we understand the desire to warn others about racist behavior associated with the business, all reviews on Yelp must reflect actual first-hand consumer experience. We have temporarily disabled the ability to post here as we work to investigate the content. If you're here to leave a review based on first-hand experience with the business, please check back at a later date. Got it, thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna Steelman Yelp here, defend them. Because I saw some people saying like, oh, this is Yelp being the moral police. This is like, wokeism gone wrong. But let's try to, but you guys can see the obvious Steelmaning here, right? They're actually, you could say that they're basically could be also seen as protecting the businesses from an influx of reviews that is not based on first-hand experiences. What do you guys think?
You're right. And well, maybe we could get into this more later, but what Vincent and I were briefly discussing before the show was that, as they say, that they're doing this off of, well, what they claim to be evidence, basically it being reported in the news. So apparently it has to rise to the level of making the news before it will actually be evidenced, or like this accusation will be confirmed or whatever.
But I don't think that it should be like, I mean, like this is like really okay. So you're getting accused of racism because of something in the news, and people who haven't came to your business are leaving you hundreds of reviews, and you are like, okay, Yelp is like, yeah, you don't get to do that because you actually have to have first-hand experience. But then this is kind of worse though. Like, boom. Like I think Yelp is trying to like appease both sides here, but I mean, one side is getting because okay. So you're saying that reviews shouldn't be based on something that is not first-hand experience, but the reviews are less high profile than this giant pop-up, that you see. That okay. So as much as the reviews should reflect people's first-hand experiences, because you don't. What do you think matters to a business more? Each individual reviews, or the fact that you just get this giant notification when you first go to their business, right? So this is worse than the reviews.
I feel like they could have made the language a little bit more neutral in some way for just the pop-up. Like, if they had worked the word alleged or allegation in there somehow, I think that would have been more fair.
Or instead of just saying racist behavior, just any unwanted, you know what I mean? Like, business accused of inappropriate behavior, allegedly, under investigation, or something like that. I mean, I think the pop-up should have been influx of negative reviews due to news coverage of this business. Neutral position. We're investigating, and you guys, the reviews, we're locking, and also the reviews are going to be locked until this whole thing is over. But
Yeah.
then, if it was like that, then the Wokistani people would be like, "What the hell?" Like that side would be like, "Wow, we can't like you're protecting racists, right?" So again, Yelp has to be like, Yelp has to. I think this was actually, hey, I'm actually a little bit more sympathetic to Yelp right now because I think Yelp was trying to figure out like, okay, how can we stop people from leaving reviews that is not based on their first-hand experience without Yelp itself being accused of racism, of supporting racists. And they're like, this is what they came up with. Actually, this seems like a lot more difficult position for Yelp to figure out what to do. And now I'm actually like, yeah, I thought like I'm gonna come in and being like, screw Yelp, like what the hell? This is like wokeism gone like on steroids. But now I actually feel like yeah, this was like not an easy thing to decide. What do you guys think? Sorry.
This one is, so let's try to add in another steelman in there, in which if what we're dealing with is legitimately racist behavior, so much so to the point where someone who is a person of color or whoever is at the butt end of the racist behavior, like it would genuinely be concerned about entering this establishment because they think they're going to be discriminated against or have the waiter spit in their food, something like that, right? Genuinely racist behavior. And if what they're saying is true, that's the only way that they would put this pop-up notification on Yelp is if there was like strong evidence that this was the case, that racist behavior occurred, then I can understand why they would want to do that, in the same way that someone would want to know whether or not an establishment is clean, whether or not it passed the inspection, whether or not there are any safety hazards or fire hazards. People would want to know that information because that's important to their well-being. You could say the same thing with very staunch racist behavior, if that is what this is targeting. Because obviously, I'm sure we're all concerned about, well, is a microaggression going to be considered racist behavior that's going to make this pop up? According to them, no, that's not the case. But we would all be concerned if that were to be something. So I get that argument in the same way that you would be concerned about your well-being for other things. This is another one of those other things as well. And another thing that I'm worried about, though, what Yelp said was that this could be brought upon by one individual working on the restaurant. So as I said, it could be a waiter spitting in your food because of your race. It could be someone yelling a racial slur at you. Just one person is all it takes in order for this pop-up to come up, according to Yelp themselves in their blog. So if that's the case, and the company fires that one person, how much damage would this pop-up have already caused to that business, especially if it's a small business and they're really struggling? And research shows that businesses rely very heavily on Yelp reviews because it brings in a lot of attention. Will the damage caused to that business, to the people who work there, to the owners, be greater than the damage caused by one racist incident that occurred to one person? It's a difficult equation. I don't know for a fact. But that would be my strong steelman, what I originally said. That would be my attempt to steelman this even further.
Would they be doing like, okay, so why is it also this just for racist behavior? What if you get on the news because somebody, like there's a video of a rat in your restaurant and that gets viral, and then a whole bunch of people now leaving reviews on a whole bunch of people that didn't go to your restaurant are now leaving reviews on your Yelp profile, that even though without going there, and like, oh my god, don't eat there, that's very unhygienic and blah blah blah. So, and Yelp is like, Yelp supposed to be reviews based on people who had first-hand experience. Shouldn't that be like also a pop-up like, guys, this is like, we're blocking this reviews because there's an influx of reviews here. So we're lacking. So why is it just racist behavior? Based on this, it should be just a general policy like, we're gonna lock out the reviews if there's ever any an influx of reviews that we think is based on a viral event, rather than people going there, right? Again, I think the reason why this is different is because other situation people wouldn't be butthurt. People are like, oh, okay, I see why you locked it. I see the point. I see that I see why this is based not how Yelp is supposed to be used. But when it comes to racism, if you do that, if you lock it when it comes to accusation of racism, then Yelp is going to be like, okay, now we're going to be accused of protecting racists. So this whole notification thing is basically their way of appeasing the mob, right? And if you think Yelp is stupid for doing this, then I don't think. I mean, they're not, because they understand that getting accused of protecting. I mean, Yelp is also looking at in their best interest as well. I mean, they don't want to be accused of protecting racists, right? Yeah. So this is not an easy decision. But here's an interesting. Okay, I know this is a crazy hypothetical, but it's just fun. Okay, I know this is very unlikely, but what if your business wrongfully gets accused of racism, and then you get this notification for people, and then you have a whole bunch of actual racists trying to defeat Yelp at its, so you're like, oh, really? These are the racist restaurants? So we're going to go eat exactly at the restaurants that have these notifications, right? So they have a whole bunch of racists that are just looking for these, like, I'm only going to, these people must be doing something right if they're getting these notifications. So we're going to go and eat at these places. And imagine if you're a restaurant that was not racist in any way, and now you have a whole bunch of triple K people as your main customer, and a bunch of skinheads just always showing up to your restaurant because of the notification. Like, what's happening?
Oh my
I don't know.
gosh.
That should be a movie.
Well, if anything, people would probably say, well, good. Now they have their own place to hang out. We don't, the non-racists can avoid that place. All the racists can go to that place.
No, but
So now we
imagine
know
the
what place to ignore.
Yeah, but imagine the restaurant owner that is like, "Okay, apparently I'm serving skinheads now."
Yeah,
Okay,
like-
this is my new life.
God damn it.
No, but you brought up a good point of like this being exclusive to racism and not just like a general influx of reviews that should be investigated. But you brought up like a health concern. The first thing I thought of was like, why is it exclusive to this type of identity category? Like,
Right.
are we going to have a different type of review for homophobia or transphobia? What about sexism? What about misogyny, sexual harassment?
Right.
You know, that was the first thing I thought of. But I think you're right. It should be expanded even further to just general, like mass influx of reviews. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah, I would expect that. Well, I wouldn't expect it, but I wouldn't be surprised if something like that were to come in the future. As far as why this and why not health concerns, or why not safety concerns, fire hazards. Well, one is politically and culturally relevant. The other one isn't. So I understand why they would focus on this rather than other things, even if other things are a bigger danger. Because, at the end of the day, these are companies, and without going too deep into it, well, a lot of things that companies do is just try to appease what is currently popular among the people that purchase their product. And even if they don't care, they're a company and they care about making profit. And as Armin said, I think this was Yelp probably, danged if you do, danged if you don't sort of situation, where it's really difficult to try to make it not seem like you're appeasing a particular side, while also not making it seem like you're completely letting, racists slide under the radar and not doing anything about it.
I'm glad that we actually did a deeper dive into this, because based on the right-wing content creators that I follow, this was just as simple as Yelp going woke and trying to like fight racism kind of story. But this was a little bit more complicated than Lauren Chen and Tim Pools of the world made it seem like it is.
What did they say actually?
What a concept.
I didn't see their takes. Was their
No,
takes
they're just
really
like, oh my god, look at the cancel culture, look at Yelp. Or like Yelp is just like this, like as if this came out of nowhere, and Yelp is like not responding to any, like as if like, oh, they're just trying to fight racism, and this is how they're fighting racism. You know what I mean? It's not like a situation that they were like, okay, we have a problem here. How could we get away with doing something that both sides are going to be happy, but obviously both sides are probably going to get angry for in some ways. But again, this is like a more complicated decision by Yelp rather than. I mean, these people. Here's the thing: a lot of these businesses, okay, they have a lot of money to lose if they make the wrong decision. Okay, so they don't make this decision lightly. Like the people don't wake up at Yelp and like, yeah, let's add a new feature that nobody asked for and probably lose a lot of money for it, right? That's not how they think. They're like always thinking like, yeah, how can we make sure that like more people use Yelp and we make more money? And usually they make not always, but usually they make very calculated decisions that is still gonna backfire on them a little bit. I mean, but that's the point, is to pick between all the different options that all will backfire, but they want to have to pick the position that backfires the least, right? So there's no solutions to these. It's just trade-offs. But go on, Susanna.
Should we keep reading through the rest of this?
Yeah. Okay.
Yelp's top priority is to ensure the trust and safety of our users, provide them with reliable content to inform their spending decisions, including decisions about whether they'll be welcome and safe at a particular business. We advocate for personal expression and provide a platform that encourages people to share their experience online, but at the same time, it's always been Yelp's policy that all reviews must be based on actual first-hand consumer experiences with the business. This policy is critical to mitigating fake reviews and maintaining the integrity of content on our platform. We don't allow people to leave reviews based on media reports because it can artificially inflate or deflate the business's star rating. How Yelp manages media-fueled reviews. The new business accused of racist behavior alert is an extension of our public attention alert. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to look into that public attention alert in a second. That we introduced in response to a rise in social activism surrounding the BLM movement. If someone associated with a business is accused of or the target of racist behavior, we will place a public attention alert on the business page to warn consumers that the business may be receiving an influx of reviews as a result of increased attention. For businesses accused of overtly racist actions, where we can link to a news article, we will escalate our warning with the business accused of racist behavior alert. Interesting. Okay, so first there's the public attention alert, and then it's the business accused of racist behavior alert. Okay. So far in 2020, we've seen a 133% increase in the number of media-fueled incidences on Yelp compared to the same time last year. Between May 12th and September 30th, we placed more than 400 alerts on business pages that were either accused of or the target of racist behavior related to the BLM movement. We have maintained around-the-clock support over the past few months to ensure that we are maintaining the trust and safety of our users and business owners. Resources for small businesses wanting to create inclusive environments. Many local businesses want to create a more inclusive environment for employees and customers alike, but they often don't have the resources that larger companies do to access training materials, educate employees, and develop language to share with their customers and employees. Interesting. Okay. That's why Yelp and Open to All have partnered to bring local businesses a new toolkit that allows them to take the next step.
Background noise. It's okay. It left. Go on.
Take the next step in creating an inclusive community. The toolkit includes a 60-minute unlearning bias training video for employees, outreach language for customers and employees, social media assets, and more. With more than 500,000 businesses indicating themselves as Open to All on their Yelp business page, Open to All has created resources for small and medium-sized businesses to uplevel their diversity and inclusion practices. Learn more about these new resources here. Increasingly, Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'll just finish this. Okay. Increasingly across the U.S. Are voting with their dollar in support of businesses that align with their values. As always, we continue to evaluate how we best use our platform to build up a better, more equitable, and inclusive environment where consumers and businesses can interact safely and fully informed.
Okay, so look how this look how this is written probably by a lot of people that know exactly what they're doing, right?
Yes, this has been through many, many hands. I can already tell.
Yeah, but look at this is why this sounded so vokey for a lot of people, because this is like a this is like a can I crap I want to say shit sandwich, right? So this is the part that this is probably the original part that they wanted to release. They're like, guys, you can't leave reviews for racist behavior if you haven't. This is basically it, right? Media field reviews, right? This was the thing that they wanted to release originally, right?
Well,
That no, this is the policy. Like, you cannot have media fueled reviews. We're gonna remove them, right? So they have this middle part, which is the like, what they were worried about, the wokey people considering being the crap, and you turn that into a sandwich. You put the sweet part at the top, you put the sweet part at the end, and then you put the crap in the middle. So you give them something to be happy about. You're like, guys, look at this. Like, here's the beginning. Increase in black-owned businesses and women and diversity. Like, look at this. Look how great we're doing. Look at this, 617% compared to last summer with black-owned businesses, and 114 increased in reviews for the support for women-owned businesses, and we're doing this, and we have my black receipt, and yay, diversity, and then you put the thing like, guys, come on, you can't have reviews that is based on the news that you have in it there, and then you finish it with like, yay, inclusivity, open to all, we are helping people with like being more inclusive, and we have training material, and you put that part in the middle. I mean, this is how it's done, but go on.
Obviously, like the heading at the end is the sugar pill, right? It's the sugar coating.
Yeah, the sugar coating. Yeah, yeah, exactly. This ending part.
Coating to the poison pill.
Yeah, this is the sugar coating at the big end, and the sugar coating at the beginning, and this is the poison pill in the middle.
Yeah, so I just sent you a link to these resources that they're encouraging people to use.
Oh, on Facebook?
Yeah, so in the host chat. There's a lot going on here already.
Host chat, I don't see anything.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But go on. You say something.
So,
I'll find it.
Yeah, they give you a little placard that you can put in the window of your business. This is an initiative sponsored by Ralph Lauren, actually. And well, it'd be better if you could share it on your screen, but then it gives some scroll down to where you see a bunch of percentages. Okay, and then zoom in, please. Okay. Now that you share with customers that you are open to all. Now that you've made this commitment, let your customers know you support them. Not only is joining Open to All a good for your employees and your customers, it's good for business. Customers support businesses that lead, and then : 64% of consumers choose, switch, or boycott a brand based on its stance on social issues.
Oh my God.
Nearly two-thirds of millennials and Gen Z express a preference for brands that have a point of view and stand for something. 33% of consumers are now choosing to buy from brands they believe are doing social or environmental good. 35% of Americans think a company's reputation is just as important as the product it makes, and have purchased a product more than once because of this reason. So then they go down and they talk about a digital toolkit and all of these stuff. And then they provide a ton of resources. But keep scrolling down until you see the diversity and inclusion trainings. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so here's where we get into more of the actual trainings. But Vince, what was your take on...
Wait, is any of this training based on Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility or Ibram X. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist book. I hope like these are better than those books. But go on, sorry.
I mean, I don't know that off the top of my head,
I
right?
know.
But just even the language that's being used starts to be a red flag of familiarity for
Oh
those
no.
authors and those works, right? Well, even just the language used in that last heading of the Yelp review, talking about
Hmm.
unlearning bias, which is a contested psychological phenomenon. Um, uh, Training videos, outreach language. The language piece of that stood out, and yeah, obviously when someone uses the word, yeah, we must our best use our platform to build a better, more equitable and inclusive environment. Um, the
You
word
know,
equitable is always a
mhm.
big red flag for me.
Yeah, it's just not because equitable by itself is bad, but just you know where they're copying. Like when you see certain phrases or words all of a sudden become more popular, you know where the source material is from. That's what it is, right?
Hmm.
By the way, just a criticism of right wing people when they come to dealing with stuff like this. A lot of the right wing content creators look at this and they say, oh, why can't you like? Why does these businesses? Why can't you just provide me the services and good? Like I don't want to. Why is my cereal box telling me what issues to care about? Why is like,
Hmm.
why can't you just watch sports without having to deal with politics? Why can't I go to a restaurant and just like get some food or just order a coffee without being lectured by my business? But I think they would be if it was under their side. I think like if a company was you know, took a stance on being anti-abortion or pro-Trump, a lot of the same people will be like, "Yay, finally! Like, yay, good, you're being on good side. Let's go eat there. Let's go support that business. Let's go. These people. So they would be they're hypocrites. And for example, when Nike had these like some I don't know, they were burning the shoes for Nike. Like I mean, they boycott. So another thing they do is like when people boycott a business, they criticize that, but then they go burn Nike shoes or like do others. Like they're hypocrites. A lot of them are hypocrites, and
They
they
also
do
participate in cancel culture.
they do cancel culture, and they also promote the businesses that stand on the right side of their political, priorities or whatever. But also, activism does involve. I mean, whatever side is right and whatever side is wrong. That being putting that aside, but boycotting businesses or boycotting products or endorsing products, that has been a very effective form of activism historically. I mean, didn't we do that in like, I mean, no, the other people did that in South Africa, for example. That was very successful, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and again, this form of activism it only happens in it's a sign of maturity actually in countries where people vote with their wallet rather than governments silencing people or telling endorse when they but, this is part of freedom of expression. You could express yourself by telling your opinions, or you could express yourself by deciding where to buy and where not to buy. I mean, you don't have the beauty of it is like if you don't care, you don't have to participate, right? You could go like, you know what, I buy whatever product I like, regardless of the political stance of the businesses that are providing those goods or services. But a lot of people could be like, yeah, I just know. I decide that I'm not going to buy your product because I don't like your political stance. And that's great. I mean, that mostly happens in among people and in societies where they move past violence as a form of activism or or government suppression of certain ideas as a form of controlling ideas. So I don't have an issue with that. But go on.
Yeah, so 100%. these people are probably hypocrites because, again, um, if the shoe were on the other foot, they probably wouldn't care. But if you were to confront them about this, about them potentially being hypocritical, they wouldn't openly admit that, oh yeah, the reason why I'm against this whole Yelp fiasco is because it's not, they're not supporting something that I support. Like, they wouldn't say that. So what would their argument be? Maybe their argument would be something along the lines of, politics is really heavy. It's really exhausting. People need to escape from that once in a while. And if these companies continue to promote a particular viewpoint that they have, a viewpoint that is currently contentious, right? Not something as obvious as they're against the triple K people, the kids candy corner. They, no one really would have a big issue with that. But with an issue that's controversial nowadays, such as the Colin Kaepernick situation, that's controversial. That people really need, they obviously need to engage in the conversation, but they also need an escape from it because it can be exhausting and the well-being of society would go down. And if it's always being thrown in your face, people are going to start to become really tired, and maybe even paradoxically, they're not even going to want to actually engage in the discourse because it's always thrown in their face and they just got tired of it. Maybe they would say something like that. What do you think would be a better steel man of what they would say? Because obviously they wouldn't admit that they're being hypocrites.
But as opposed to what? As opposed to, like, when has these issues not been in people's faces throughout history?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're like, look, go back into 1960s. You had, this was all over everywhere. Like, these issues were worse in your face everywhere. Like, give me an example of time that, being pro-war, anti-war, pro-black rights activists, against it. But when was it that people had an option to completely escape from that in their daily lives?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was all over the news, all over entertainment, all over, your, professional career. People were talking about that. And also, if you actually look at the history of private companies jumping on bandwagons of social movements, this was like very, at least in the United States, private companies noticed that this is something that they could do from the since advertising was a thing. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually look at from the suffrage movement or like every other civil rights movement, right? Or like when the feminists, like not just the first wave, like the other waves as well, you can see like cigarette companies, for example, right? Started putting like, oh, we could use this. Like, they started using ads with women smoking because women were not supposed to smoke, right? But they started making ads with women smoking. But like, yeah, this is not a man thing. Like, you could like be a strong, independent woman and grab our cigarettes and smoke. They were like, they're using the social movement as a way to sell their products, right? And there's many examples of this. Like, when has this not been and what do you expect to happen? Like, do you think these giant companies noticing a trend and then them thinking like, hey, we could probably get a little bit more exposure if we use this trend to sell our products? Do you think they're not going to do it? Like, what is the request here?
Now, let me try to provide another potential counter argument to that from what they would say. I don't agree with what I'm saying, but let's say they would say, okay, sure, but just because it was like that in the past does not mean it should be like that now. Mm-hmm. And the other thing would be like, well, back then there was no social media. There was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no YouTube in which people were having public debates and they were widely publicized with millions of views. So the only way for these things to be really, really into the public scene was for these companies to push these viewpoints. Now things are different. Now that doesn't need to be the case. Now we have platforms in which these conversations can be had. So maybe the rules should change now in 2020 than they were in the 1960s.
Actually, I would think that now you have more control over what you're exposed to, okay? Because before, you didn't have social media, so you're watching your favorite movie, and all of a sudden, if a cigarette company comes and has an ad about, I don't know, using like, black civil rights movement or feminist movement to sell their products, how many other channels, like, you can't really get away from that ad. You can't skip the ad. Now you are very much in control over the content you're exposed to. You don't have to follow Yelp. You don't have to, like, if you see an ad on Facebook that you don't like, you tell Facebook that I don't like this ad, and you're not going to see that ad ever again. Um, or an ad from that company. You are so much more in control over the things, the content that you're exposed to. Like, if you are seeing that Yelp is doing an anti-racist kind of, something, you are like looking for it, right? You are following the people that are covering this. Like, you are so much in control over the YouTube channels that you subscribe to, or the Twitter accounts that you're following, over the Facebook pages that you're following. And every time you see something on your feed that you don't like, you could unfollow it, block it, send feedback over to Facebook about this is not the kind of content I like. So you probably need less rules than before over these things, because the content consumers are way more in control over what they get to see compared to before. So yeah, you're seeing the things that you choose to see, so you don't get to complain about it as much as before. So this is kind of like the Muslims who come like, you're like, you guys are posting blasphemy, you're making out with the Quran, this is offensive. I'm like, you guys are on our platform. Like, you guys came here to find us. You don't have to see any of this, right? So I don't think that is. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I'm trying to think of an argument that they would say against that, because I love playing devil's advocate. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, you're doing good. Yeah.
What if they were to maybe they made the original argument different, where these controversial issues when it comes to politics, because as I said, they're very I don't think anyone would disagree that this is very demanding. It's very annoying, and it can be very stressful, especially if you're an activist. Maybe these are things you should be able to opt in and out of these conversations. So as you said, with online, with companies like Twitter and Facebook, yeah, you can create an echo chamber if you want. You can only expose yourself to whatever it is, whatever viewpoint that you want to be. You can follow all the Tim Pools and Dave Rubins on one side, or you can follow all the Voshes and David Packmans on the other. You can do that, and you will only be exposed to one particular viewpoint. Every now and then, you'll find maybe a tweet that you don't like, but that's every now and then. But you shouldn't be forced to always undergo these really taxing conversations, which they would say, like, is what's happening. If you turn on the NFL and you see BLM all over the players' uniforms, and you're being forced to engage in this conversation, or at the very least not engage, but see it and be exposed to it, and it can be really annoying. Well, what do you think about the opt-in, opt-out?
Yeah, but again, it used to be like the NFL that you mentioned is one of the traditional old media, right? It used to be that you would never be able to opt out. And because you just gave an example of traditional media, that's one of the situations that you can't opt out. But compared to before, we have more new media that you get to opt in or opt out of everything you want, right? So the example that you gave is an example of how every form of media used to be.
Yeah,
So,
but maybe they say, again, just because it was like that in the past does not mean it should be that now.
Yeah, that's why we're moving away from that. There's less of that now. You have more control compared to before. And going forward, you're probably going to have more control even. But another thing I want to add, let's not pretend like, here's the thing. There's the same people that complain about these issues being forced on them. They feed on these. They pretend that they don't want this. If Yelp didn't have this, they would be like, what do we cover this week? We don't have anything to say, right? Like, they go hunting for these news items, right? And their content consumers, like the right-wing people that are like, oh my god, look at all of this political stuff in our, they are addicted to finding stuff like this for them to complain about. Susanna.
Oh man, I've been doing a deep dive into the trainings that were offered while you guys are talking.
You're triggered, I think. You look triggered.
Yeah, there's a lot to go into, but I won't even go into that. But to go into what you were talking about, into people looking for this type of stuff, I agree. So, I think that people can take the anti-wokeness too far as well. Obviously, we've talked about that many times before. For example, like, one thing that bothered me was, like, a public intellectual who I generally like and I agree with on, like, several things, James Lindsay. He's, like, posting memes about this. And he was posting memes of time for some coded language. Instead of children of Abraham, the J people, like from back in the 40s, having their businesses marked as being part of J people, he was putting this alert as like on old-timey photos of people
Comparing it to that,
in naughty Germany.
the Blue
being
Star of
marked on
David.
their-
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
being marked on their businesses. I thought that was way too extreme.
That's not a good thing.
I really don't like that. In fact, I think that does
Yeah.
a massive disservice to that entire community. To compare
So basically,
this to
so
that.
basically,
That's
what
way
he
too
suggests.
far.
Yeah, that's way too far. So that would be like as if yeah, during naughty Germany, not naughty Germany during World War
The
II.
bad times during World War II.
The bad times during World War II in Germany. So basically, what he is as if he's suggesting that what was happening is that a lot of naughty German people were leaving bad reviews for the children of Abraham people. God damn it, YouTube. And so basically, the Nazi party came out and said, like, guys, we cannot have, if you don't eat at J people's businesses, you cannot leave review. So was this what's happening? So the Nazi party came out and say, okay, so we're going to just put a notification that this is a J-owned business. So we're going to remove the reviews of German people if they haven't ate. Is this what was happening? That didn't eat, like, yeah, this is not even comparable, right? Not even comparable. But I mean, okay, so what exactly did he suggest that is comparable, or maybe like if let's steelman him, was he suggesting that we're heading there if we're not careful, or was he saying like this is like the same? Somebody steelman him.
Susanna, you're muted.
Yeah, I just found the meme. Oh no!
Can we even show it?
Yeah, we can show this.
Oh, unless you're gonna show it.
Billy Bung is saying, Jesus Christ, look at how YouTube is making people talk so sad. It's kind of funny though.
I hope you guys are quick, okay?
Yeah, you guys better get this.
Yeah, so it's really bad.
Oh my god, what the hell is this? No.
You're not sharing your screen, are
Yeah,
you?
I know. Give me a second.
Okay, you always want me to remind you.
Okay.
Can you actually click on the image?
Oh no.
Yeah. And then on the screen it says, so it's Yelp and Twitter side by side, like marking this clothing business, I guess. And then the sign that someone photoshopped, but I'm assuming it's him since his @ is in the corner. Warning, this business is now considered quote unquote racist based on our new definition of racism based on critical race theory. Visit or hire employees from here at your own risk. See, I don't think that's fair to fully go, oh, this is explicitly based off of the new definition based on critical race theory based on what we just read from Yelp itself. Now, because they're going off of news reports of local instances and they said overt racist behavior. Now, at the end, they definitely did provide a lot of languaging that does come out of critical race theory type scholars. That's definitely true. But in terms of what they said was actually going to meet their standard, I don't think this is exactly fair. Now,
no,
those news articles, the incidents that was reported, potentially could be related to someone having a more CRT informed worldview and perceiving something as racist, blah, blah, blah. But that still has to reach, apparently, the level of news articles. But the emphasis for me when I read what Yelp itself published was an emphasis more on overt racism, not racism as defined by Kendi or D'Angelo.
Yeah, do we have any... Yeah, you're right, actually. Good point. Do we have any evidence that Yelp is like using the critical race theory definition of racism of like,
well,
people are getting marked for microaggressions or people not are people getting labeled as racist for like not putting a BLM sign, and now they're like, is that what's happening? Like, go on. Or is it
Um,
because yeah, it seems like the way that you get that notification, if something major happens like on the news, and it doesn't seem like it was as bad as what James Lindsay, oh sexy, actually sexy James Lindsay was making it seem to be. Look at this.
Can't argue with that.
he changes it. No, because earlier this week it was Halloween costume idea, sexy James Lindsay, which I thought was funny. Anyways, so based on the description that I'm looking at from Yelp, once again, they're saying what inspired this was that they placed more than 450 alerts on business pages that were accused of or the target of racist behavior related to the BLM movement. Now, that's a little unclear about the specificity of like what that means related to the BLM movement. So that's kind of like goes to your point earlier. It's not this far. Even if it was this far in terms of the definition that they're going up on, even if it was this far, like, oh, this their definition, Yelp's definition of racism is CRT informed, like, which all three of us here have disagreements with. Even if that was the case, it's still not this bad.
Yeah, you're right.
This is so unfair.
No.
This is so unfair.
This is what you know. What this is?
Like, so during the protests, like he posted a meme that I think we reposted on Atheist Republic that was like people posting, basically their identity categories on the front side of their businesses to try to not get hit by looters, right?
Right.
And the meme was people the children of Abraham painting the blood of the lamb over their door so that the angel of death doesn't come inside during, the story of Moses and Exodus. That was a joke, but that was like actually happening. And there were so many photos of people who loudly posted their support still shattered. Right. But I'm like, this honestly insults me. Like, and not me, but I really don't like this. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's charitable. And I think it does a disservice to honest criticism.
I mean, this is like you turning. This is like you becoming the monsters that you're trying to fight. Isn't this what we accuse the woke people of doing? Everything that I don't like is like the naughty people.
Yeah,
right?
We accuse them of catastrophizing everything and taking everything to the extreme end of what it is that they're talking about. And I don't want these things. James Lindsay, I like him a lot. He's fantastic. He does this sometimes, and it's difficult to determine whether or not it's a meme, because he memes a lot, and he says here, meme. But as even Susanna said, it's still pretty offensive. But even if it were just a meme, and he's not actually being serious about this, how's it going to look like to people on the other side to say, wow, these people are these are the champions of free speech. These are the people who are trying to argue against CRT. They're just as crazy. And it's a shame because especially with someone like James Lindsay, who is incredible. I love him a lot. He's incredibly bright, very smart, wrote a great book, Cynical Theories. I don't want people to just lump him alongside of the people of like Dave Rubin, because he's not a Dave Rubin. I know he's not a Dave Rubin. But with stuff like this, people are going to think that, even if it's just a meme.
Yeah.
It will, as Armin talks about all the time, exaggerations are a disservice to people who are doing things in good faith. And I think James is doing most things in good faith. That's not exactly what I mean, but not honest actors, but like really good, legitimate criticism. I think it delegitimizes himself, because he's exaggerating, and when you exaggerate, people can easily point to that exaggeration and dismiss the good criticism you have.
Should we look at this Melissa Chen article?
I browsed it. I don't think, especially since we're like coming up at the top of the hour, I don't think it's great. I mean, it's a relevant written piece. I don't think it was very well into the rest of what we were talking about here, but basically she compares this new feature as a social credit out of the CCP playbook, which
I don't think that is.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like that was what they were going for.
No. Yeah, but again, she also points to vague, ever-expanding definitions of what constitutes racist behavior. I feel like Yelp could have been more specific, but I feel like they were pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think Yelp. I mean, it's not the solution that I like. Like, like you are accused of racism. Be warned. Be warned. But I can see why they were not looking for the best solution for the businesses, and they were only looking for the best solution for Yelp, right? And them not making. I mean, if you have to just change. Sometimes when businesses look like they're doing something dumb, is actually you are being dumb because you think their priorities are something else, right? Then when you adjust what the actual priorities are, they're like, oh, actually, maybe they're making a smart decision. If Yelp's priorities was to protect small businesses from baseless accusations, and also at the same time not promoting, not holding racists accountable. Like if that's what they were, if they were thinking about the businesses that they're representing, maybe they didn't make the best decision. But if they were thinking about Yelp's bottom line, maybe this was not the most ideal solution, but best solution from all the options, right? Then they're like, okay, yeah, it actually makes sense what they did, right? Again, you can't blame them. You have to deal with the woke mob going after people and accusing. And they have to think about their own PR, right? And again, I don't think Melissa Chen is right. It's not like Yelp is trying to punish businesses for bad behavior, like CCP's playbook. They don't have any ideological. It doesn't seem like they have any ideological motivation here. It just seems like they were trying to avoid Yelp being. Actually, it's exactly the opposite. It seems like they were trying to avoid Yelp being used as people reviewing for people reviewing businesses for their for their politics, right? They were trying to avoid that while looking good at the same time, while looking good to the woke mob at the same time, right? So they're trying to this site is used. I mean, again, if think about Yelp, imagine if this is all of a sudden is used for people to be like, oh, you're anti-Trump, you're pro-Trump, so we're gonna make the reviews to reflect that because we hate you or because we love you because of your political ideology or other social justice issues. Then if that becomes the norm, then Yelp becomes a useless app to a lot of people, right? People like, yeah, I actually don't know if these people have good food or not, right? Like, I can't use this app anymore to figure out if this business is actually going to give me a good sandwich, right? So Yelp is like, yeah, we need to. So Yelp is like, yeah, we need to avoid this platform being used for that. So we need to block these people from using it like that, but at the same time, not be accused of protecting racists, right? And that is not at all being CCP playbook, right?
I think, well, so in this article, she talks about kind of like the influence of algorithms on how these things work. And I think kind of the essence can be summed up in the last sentence. Now, given these days, the media will often run a story about an accusation of racism on its own without any due process. What exactly is the difference between a social credit system run by the elites in government versus one run by the mob? I don't think that's completely fair, but it does raise the important point of, now related to these news articles, what's going into these news articles. Now, due process. This isn't a trial, right? No one's being tried for a crime. I don't think there is specific due process on a racist experience. So how is that determined? It's like a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I actually want to respond to this comment by Randolph. And I disagree with Randolph here. So Randolph is saying Yelp is setting themselves up for defamation lawsuits. They have to operate based on facts, not suspicions, which can only be validated in court cases. Yelp is acting poorly. Not really, because look, they didn't say this business is racist. Okay? They're saying this business is accused of racist behavior. Again, I'm not saying that this is an ideal solution at all. I mean, this is really bad for the business, but they're saying this business is accused of racist behavior. If they could show that there's news articles that the business is accused of racist behavior, then they're not accusing you actually of racist behavior themselves. They're saying you are accused of racist behavior, which is very easily provable. Like, and here, look, there's link to the news articles to show that they're accused, right? They're not saying you're racist. They're saying you're being accused. Okay.
And obviously, a company as massive as Yelp has already pushed this through several legal teams,
Yeah.
picking over this language with a fine-tooth comb. I think maybe alleged would have been better.
I mean, alleged,
obviously-
accused is the same thing.
Yeah, just in terms of how people commonly, when they first hear that, like an accusation, I don't know, that sounds like much stronger language versus an allegation. There's, I think, a little bit more of like a possibility that something's different. Like when I hear allegation, I think of more skepticism. Maybe that's just me. Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. I wonder, like, will people try when this happens, because it's going to happen, because they've talked about how this giant increase in mass reporting or mass reviewing, I guess. Will people try to sue for this? I'm very curious. But again, what Randolph was saying, which can only be validated in court cases, there are no court cases for accusations of racist behavior. So what people are talking about due process, all this stuff. Like, what is the due process in this situation? There isn't.
This is not like this due process for what? That nobody is accusing you of a crime, right?
Yeah,
this is not due process in court cases. Nobody is saying that you committed a crime. Due process for, like, court. What would you bring this to a court to? Like, I accuse you of being a very naughty boy. Like, what like, I don't have a court case to prove my case. Like, no. How could you bring this to court? You can't bring this to court.
I mean,
it's not a crime to be racist. It's bad. Yeah.
It's in terms of, like, this ideological stronghold that people are accusing of, like, Yelp having or trying to implement, or that they've been taken over by an ideological stronghold. So when I was briefly looking through some of the materials that they pointed the business owners to for free, so a lot of what they pointed people to does trigger some alarm bells, or very familiar language to me. So maybe you could say that those services are more biased towards a certain ideology, certainly based on the materials that are just on the front of their websites, right? I haven't done these trainings myself, but certain, like, one group that's offered to them is called One Tilt. And in One Tilt, there are peer learning communities. And in the peer learning communities, they explicitly split cohorts into white folks with an X learning community, and then a Black, Indigenous, people of color learning community. So the fact that these cohorts are split on the basis of race is a big, like, Habibi to me. Then there was other stuff about telling the difference between allyship and being an accomplice. So, like, several of these sites emphasize being an accomplice versus an ally, which is language that I used frequently when I was a straight up Antifa member. Except it was taken to an extreme idea of what an accomplice is. This is not that bad. But so I'm seeing this language. It's very familiar to me. Where this comes from, certain phrases that are used on this are giving me a Kendi D'Angelo flavor in my mouth.
Yuck.
But in terms of the actual statement that Yelp put out itself, I think like what Armin said before, they did a pretty good job making trade-offs.
I mean, pretty good job if you care about Yelp. Not
Yeah.
if you care about. I mean, this is
Very-
horrible for the business, for the small business that gets this on their when you visit their Yelp. This is devastating, right? I mean, if we lived in a world where we didn't have to worry about the Wokistani mob, this should have probably said something like, "This business is getting an influx of reviews, positive or negative. We're not going to say." Just an influx of reviews that we suspect that it is not based on first-hand experiences. As a result, we're temporarily blocking reviews on this business. That's what I've said. Like, it could be also positive reviews, right? But positive reviews that is not based on people actually going there, just because like maybe they did something nice and then it got covered in the news, and now people are leaving positive reviews. They're like, "Oh my god, you guys are so nice because you donated to charity, and I never came to your business, but hey, here's 5 stars." That could also be blocked, right? So it would be completely neutral. It would be completely like based on, not based on race, based on any type of activity. That would have been the ideal solution. But again, if they had that solution, then people would be like, "Yep, you guys are protecting racists, and Yelp is in it for themselves, not for the small businesses that the people are reviewing." So this is what they went for instead, right? Again, I understand it if we consider Yelp as a for-profit business, and obviously their profit is the only thing that they care about. But so I understand why they went with this instead, right?
Yep.
Vince,
Yep.
Vince.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And it's what I'm worried about. And to go back to the whole, what would James Lindsay say? Because even though they're not too explicit, but they basically say they're looking at not crazy levels of racism, but levels of racism that you could understand why this thing is being implemented. If we're talking about things like, is this white family selling tacos a sign of racism that we should accuse them? That doesn't seem like what they're going for. So,
No.
Cultural appropriation. So I understand that they're concerned that given that tech corporations lean more towards that, being sympathetic to those worldviews, I get the concern that they're worried that maybe Yelp would be okay with those accusations, even though that's not what they're saying, because they would probably get a lot of, I can't say, crud for being open about it now, but later they say, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, they're being culturally appropriate. So I get that. But as of right now, based on the information we have, I don't think that it is intellectually honest to say that we should be worried and concerned about this and making memes about this, given the information that we have.
Yeah.
I don't, and I say that sharing their concern that based on what other tech companies are doing, they're very sympathetic towards that worldview. That does not mean that Yelp will therefore be sympathetic towards that worldview. It makes it more likely, but it doesn't mean that is the case, especially given what they are telling us.
Yeah, I mean, it's even if it does seem that they're somewhat sympathetic because they're afraid of them, right?
Mhm.
But even if they are, I kind of fault the climate that these businesses have to deal with rather than the businesses themselves, right? Like, what do you want the business to do? Like, stand up to the mob, even though it's against your bottom line, because we think that you need to be brave and stuff, not give in to them. Like, why would they do that? It's like, why would they do that? They determine that this is in the best interest of their bottom line, and they're like, but we're gonna take an ideological stance and say no to the woke mob. Like, they're businesses. They're here to make
You'll
money.
go homeless, but hey, you stood up to the mob.
Yeah, Susanna.
I mean, I'm concerned about small business owners in a lot of different ways. And already working in the restaurant business, which is primarily what Yelp is involved in reviewing, is one of the toughest businesses to be in. Like, the margins that you're making are so small. So, yeah, I think they handled this pretty adeptly in terms of Yelp's interest, but for these small business owners, something
horrible.
like this could be devastating.
Yeah, especially the ones that. Here's a tip for small businesses. I know a lot of you have focused on one of these platforms from reviews than others. Like some people focus on getting reviews on Google, Google businesses. Some people focus heavily on Yelp. Some people focus on some other apps to make sure that the reviews are showing up. Diversify. Like make sure you're looking really good on Google businesses, on Yelp, on Facebook. What was that other thing that people use to find restaurants? I forgot. But yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Mhm.
And if all of a sudden Yelp does you wrong, one thing you could do is just get off of Yelp. You could get off of Yelp, and now when people search for you, your Yelp reviews are not the first one that shows up. Your Google business, reviews are going to be the first thing that shows up, right?
Yeah. I
So
hope there's a good appeals process. If you get accused of it and they link to an article and okay, one, if it's not true, I hope the appeals process is good, because even though there's an article about it and even though there's some evidence, maybe there could be some stronger counter evidence. I hope that it has a good appeals process. And two, even if it is true and it was perpetuated by one individual at the restaurant, I hope it is easy, as soon as they fire that person or whatever they do, slap them on the hand or whatever, I hope it's easy enough to make sure that that notification is gone. Because as you said, especially if it's a small business, this thing can kill you. So I
yeah,
hope that there's enough stuff there to make sure that the damage is proportional to what actually happened.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping that more alternatives show up to all of these tech monopolies, like
Mhm.
because like so that if one of these businesses does you wrong, you there's some yeah, it's just really like it used to be like people relied on their own websites for traffic like that, but now we know that Facebook, Yelp, Google, like they determine how good your business does, way more than any traffic that you could ever create on your own. And that's why if these companies are influenced by certain their community service, their terms of service is influenced by any sort of ideology, then all of a sudden, entire industries all of a sudden have to bend the knee to one certain way of thinking compared to other ones. And I understand that that's a major concern, and we do need to keep an eye on it, but we keep a better eye on it if we don't exaggerate. And we also, because if we do exaggerate, then when there's an actual situation when we need to raise the alarm, people wouldn't be taking us seriously because of the fear mongering we did before. Susanna.
I wish we had the time to go through the FAQ that they updated with, because it answered some of our questions. Like, so for example, we were talking about like, oh, well, why is it specific to only this kind of alert? Well, it turns out they have something called the unusual activity alert. We place this alert when a business receives an influx of Yelp reviews motivated by recent news event or social media post. This is the most common type of media fueled alert. So they already have that, and it's generalized to just an influx of Yelp reviews in general. Then they talk about what is considered a credible media outlet. So what is their supposed due process, for lack of a better word, because people were hung up on that. They say Yelp's user operations teams thoroughly investigates every business that receives an unusual influx of reviews stemming from what people have read in the news or saw on social media. If a business warrants a media-fueled unusual activity alert or public attention alert, we may link to a news article from established and credible national or local news media outlet, while a business accused of racist behavior alert will always link to a news article that includes factual evidence to give our users the fullest picture of what transpired with the business. Will these alerts appear on the Yelp business page forever? No. After we've seen a dramatic decrease or stop on a business page, we will then clean up the page so that only first-hand consumer experiences are reflected. So the alert can appear for several days or weeks, just so long as there is this mass reviewing going on, which I think is a pretty good solution. So it's not always going to be there. It's just for when they're seeing an unusual influx of secondhand, third-hand reviews.
Yeah.
And then they say, finally, how does Yelp determine what's racist? Only Yelp's user operations team has the ability to place media-fueled consumer alerts on a business page after a thorough investigation of the incident. For incidences where someone associated with the business was accused of or is the target of racist behavior, our moderators will first default to a general public attention alert. We will only escalate to a business accused of racist behavior alert when there's a news article from an established and credible media outlet that includes factual evidence of egregious racist actions from business owner or employee, such as using overtly racist slurs or symbols. So again, that does not meet the standard of this critical race theory. I think a lot of these major anti-woke figures are really blowing this out of proportion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair, and you're doing a disservice to your own work.
Yeah, this is not
my
like
work too. God damn it.
yes, people using explicit racially charged terms. That is not like the same. Like Lindsay's like, oh, critical race theory definition of racism. Like definitely not. This is like explicit racism. This is not like implicit biases or
which is something he is against. Which is why I'm so bothered by that meme that he posted, acting as if this is at all comparable.
No.
To what the Jade people, the children of Abraham, had to go through in
Yeah.
World War II. That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not saying Yelp's solution is ideal, but a business getting labeled as racist for explicitly shouting the N-word at some black customer and getting like, oh, this business is accused of racism, and even not saying they're racist, saying they're accused of racism, that's not the same as your business being shut down, and you being sending takeover. And then you being sent on a train to Auschwitz because of your heritage. Yeah, like no.
It's the
same thing.
And I want to clarify.
Is it the same thing? Okay.
Yeah, right. I want to clarify that I don't find the meme that James Lindsay posted offensive. It takes a lot to offend me, especially after what the Hindu people have done to me.
Oh, you're offended, Susanna.
Oh, I'm so
poor baby.
No, it frustrated me because of the reasons I mentioned previously. It's a disservice to himself, and it's a disservice to us. And people who want to exaggerating is a disservice.
Yep.
It's counter. It actually it's against our own best interests. Not even our best interest, just the work of what we believe to genuinely bring the most amount of people the greatest amount of happiness.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't meme about situations. By all means, do it. Just make sure the meme is accurate, and it's more likely that people are going to see that meme and understand an argument and think about it in a new way. Or even if not, even it could just be an SHIT post. But don't go so far as to the point where like the meme doesn't even make that much sense because it's a huge exaggeration, and now you're going to be lumped in with people it's probably best not to be lumped in with.
Yeah, and then you can go, and then people go look it up themselves and be like, dude, what are you even talking about? This is not even remotely comparable.
Unless if it's a joke, like if you're making a joke that a lot of people could actually reasonably think it's not a joke, I don't know, maybe put in the caption that this is a joke, I'm exaggerating, or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, I understand humor. I understand hyperbole and the absurdity of comedy. I laugh at a lot of stuff that's really messed up. Just ask Armin. Yeah, for
okay, I make fun of Susanna for not being funny because she's a woman, but yeah, she's funny sometimes funny.
Oh yeah, just that's not even what I was referring to, but okay.
No. I just had to make that clear. So, unlike most women, Susanna is sometimes funny.
There we go.
Is that a joke?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. God damn it.
You see, for people like me,
people don't know you're
me don't know the difference.
Okay. Yes. Let's take our own advice and tell people.
You're the one who's not funny because people can't tell you're joking. That's what it is.
You were just laughing right now when I said that.
Because
so shut up.
I know you're joking because I've had to learn.
Okay.
But I didn't for a really long time because you're not funny.
Okay. Just laughed at
that was
joke.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I mean, that's funny. See, Susanna can be funny. All right, let's end this here before we cancel ourselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're gonna get in trouble. We're gonna get in trouble. Yeah, we're gonna get in trouble for this, I think. Vincent, do you want to add anything?
Sarah Silverman is very funny. Whitney Cummings is funny. Just a list of funny female comedians.
Okay, virtue. Here's
Use my virtue signaling. Here we go.
Collect it. Hold your hands like this. People will
Everyone,
virtue.
please, every college student out there.
Virtue for the poor. Virtue for the poor.
This is why you just have to cancel yourself, just preemptively. I did that back in March. So, thanks,
guys. Subscribe, guys. Come on, please, subscribe. Do it, Vince. You do it too. Come on. It's really funny. No. Forget his channel. Subscribe to Atheist Republic. All right, bye.
You're already on Atheist Republic. You subscribe to my channel.
Dude, half of the people that are watching these videos don't subscribe. I don't know how
means
they
there's another half then that's not subscribed. Oh, are you saying to my channel or to your channel?
No. They're watching my videos,
and
they're not subscribing. Like, what the hell's up with that? Guys, subscribe. We're gonna do more shows. If you like this, we're gonna do a lot more shows like this. So
there's a religious guy called Try First, who I've seen him here before, dude.
Oh, he's a moron.
Yeah, but subscribe because you're here quite. The content attracts you. You might as well subscribe. Hit the bell button so you know when we're live, so that way you can come in and leave your comments.
Yeah, be alerted for when you can come tell us we're going to hell.
Yes, all right. Bye. Subscribe.